I want to ask you, first of all, how you decided to structure the film around these people. They are all such individual characters, and you really feel that you understand them and you understand their world, even though it's a place that you probably never in your imagination ever think you'd be able to visit yourself.
Well, when we went first to Near Connect, we were met off the helicopter by a man we assumed was the leader of the town because he had great authority and showed us around. It turned out to be a Langwak, the sewage collector, who became our ally and our friend and our way in. He spoke very good English, and he was this unlikely entrepreneur who wanted to save the village, the only outsider. And immediately we latched onto him as a potential way into a story. And then we gradually over time, and I have to say at this point that I realized in documentary, unlike fiction, that editors are really the scriptwriters and the geniuses of documentaries. And it was our initial editor, Russell Crockett, who identified a lot of the characters that we came back with in the footage. And David discovered Lars, so I'll hand you over.
Well, Lars was, we sort of formed a quite strong bond early on, and had the advantage that he spoke pretty good Danish, and similarly with Ilangwak. So in many ways that became a way in, and helped enormously in actually hanging out with him and seeing his world, simply because of that immediate connection. And also they were all very open to let us in, and in that way we became sort of a part of the community, really.
And David, seeing as you have the microphone, you're also the cinematographer on the film. It looks absolutely gorgeous, and you seem to capture a blend between a really kind of the rather visceral way of life that has to be led in terms of all the kind of fishing and hunting, but also a very mystical feel, particularly in the sections where the seasons change, that it's very lyrical. How did you bring those two styles together so successfully?
Well, we, of course, Greenland is a kind of gift to a cinematographer in many ways in terms of the visuals, because the light is ever-changing. During the summer, you've got sunlight 24 hours a day, and you've got these amazing sunsets. And similarly, in the winter, there's absolutely no light, so you're slightly stuck in many ways. So that lends itself to a lot of amazing visuals. But then, of course, our way in was very much what we wanted to be a part of the community and hang out with the characters and for them to be a part of it. So they sort of helped us, what should we say, sort of make the film.
We actually left a camera in the village, and some of the visuals are shot by the sewage collector. So David's not responsible at all.
It's all the good stuff, of course.
But that's another wonderful thing about the film, the sewage collector. You know, it's a community where nobody seems to kind of be judgmental about anyone else. Everyone's, whatever they do, they have their role, they fulfill it, and it seems a very happy place.
Well, we were really surprised by that, actually, because you see a lot of documentaries about Greenland that deal with the social issues. I think a lot of those social issues have come out of people being moved out of their context, their homes, and their nomadic life and their traditions, and they've been moved to cities, and they've lost their identities. And this place really surprised us, that they had this fighting spirit, that they were going to turn over their fate, that they believed in it. Lars obviously was fighting his own little battle there, and I mean, I think in some ways fierce individualism in those places is sort of frowned upon. You know, if you're not a hunter, you don't belong. It's not an easy life. But it's, you know, that's under the surface. Mm-hmm. Well, it wasn't good in the dark. You can talk about the dark, because David really hung out in the dark.
Well, amazingly, it's either incredibly nice in the sense that you've got a lot of days with blue sky, but it does get very cold, and when the weather is very bad, then it does get very bad. And there was a time when we weren't there where actually half of the village was sort of flooded, all the houses that were close to the sea. But on the whole, it was pretty amazing, actually.
And their lives are completely governed by the weather. You realise that they don't for a minute think they're in control of their own lives. You know, and from one day to the next, they're just waiting to see what the weather does, and that determines whether or not they're going to be able to go hunting and what they can do. We went to a number of hamlets. We went to 4 or 5, And I think it was the connection with the characters. I mean, I had gone with these expectations that we were going to see a place that was affected by the ice melting, which we did see. You know, that was very visceral, and the receding, the glacier left scars in the village. You could see that, and people were bearing witness to that. But what surprised us, and what we really came through when we found the characters in that village, was how they're contending with all sorts of pressures of the modern world. And in a way, it's a film about globalization. It's a film about the effects of social media, you know, all those things. And in that village, we found those characters that we felt encapsulated different aspects of that story.
I slept on the floor in Ilangwork's spare room quite a few times.
They had a service house as well, where they had no running water in the village, as you saw, and bucket toilets, but they did have one service house with some washing machines, and we slept on the floor of that also quite a lot. And we took our kids with us. It's no mean feat.
How did they find it?
Well, actually, they really loved it. You know, the bizarre thing was that we took our baby at that time. He turned 1 and 2 in the village, because we spent the summers of his first and second year there. And his second year, we held a birthday party, his second birthday, and a hunter turned up, and he put this present in front of our son Noah, and he opened this present, and inside was the claw of a polar bear that had wandered into the village and been shot because it was actually about to go into the shop. So it was a surprising second birthday present. Noah thinks it's quite normal.
Did he keep it? Have you still got it?
Well, I think, did we leave it behind?
We did smuggle it out.
Did we smuggle it out?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're not allowed to take any of those things out.
Yeah, well, they've taken on Danish Lutheran Christianity, and they do go to church, and some of them are quite religious in their own way, but there is also this other tradition, the shaman tradition, and that quite a lot, it obviously means a lot. I mean, outwardly it's vanished, but inwardly they're carrying it, as you could see with Lars. I mean, it struck me, as someone who does fiction, that when we had that Tupilak sequence, you'd sort of think, if you were making a fiction film, surely this outward-looking modern boy wouldn't make a Tupilak in a way as to exorcise his demons, but he did. He felt this strong connection. So it was this conflict in a way, those two things running side by side. Even with the old women who were religious, they also believed in lots of their ancestors' beliefs.
There was actually, believe it or not, there was one day where we were sort of walking around town, and all of a sudden we saw everybody run back into their houses and close the doors, and a sort of quite large speedboat appeared on the horizon, and out came 8 missionaries, I suppose they were, Jehovah's Witnesses, who came to preach. And they went around and knocked on every single door, but nobody, funnily enough, was at home. So they left again.
They were very good about it.